Nick, there's a guy in the sports journalism world who, I mean, has been on a crazy run right now. I'm talking like before Game 7, Halliburton, prayers up to him. Hopefully he recovers stronger and better. But that playoff run that he had of constantly hitting game winners and taking himself out of situations, that's what this dude is in the sports journalism world. Pablo Torre. He has this show on YouTube called Pablo Torre Finds Out. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out. They released an episode recently between him and Mike Florio, who, everybody kind of knows who Mike Florio is. I just found out yesterday that he was a lawyer in another life. Didn't know that. But they investigated kind of maybe a collusion case that the NFL owners have.
That's crazy. You didn't know Florio, but like he's been doing this since probably your whole life. Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I guess
century. I'm a quarter century old. So
yeah, that's like the generation about, like, that's just part of the story. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. He's been an NFL reporter your whole entire life. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so they kind of uncovered this alleged possible, let's just put quotes around this whole thing, just because, collusion case between the NFL and really just watching it. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out because it's very, very interesting. And it encompasses the whole league. But you've been covering the league for a long time. You're in the know. You covered maybe one of the most well-known scandals in the NFL recently in recent history when you were in New England. So does collusion exist in the NFL? And if so, how have the Saints been hurt or benefited from it?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, shout out to Pablo and Florio for getting this document and putting it out there. It's kind of crazy to see how all this stuff goes together. I had a Pablo this morning. Like, I told him he's an alien. Like, he's like every other week, it seems like he's dropping a story that is just making like the world stop. Like he's doing like real journalism. And some of it doesn't feel like it's weighty, like getting the New York Knicks pitch video to LeBron James. But like that shit is hard to get, man. Like like the journalism chops that it takes to go get the stuff. And me as a sports fan, I care about that. Like, that is an important story to me. Figuring out that LeBron James probably wasn't at the Kobe thing, that's an important story to me. Like, it just... It's people lying and seeing how stuff works. And then he's like he did the whole Belichick thing. Man, I devoured every episode. I'm interested in it. Like, it's in the journalism that he's doing on this stuff is crazy. Like, on the Belichick story, he went through and like looked at fan cams and found pictures of her in the stands at these he is putting in insane work. And like, I think it deserves to be applauded. Like, he's killing everybody in the industry right now. No question about it. This story, like, and look, he's like, some of the stories are like crazy and incredibly, they aren't all like, and this is one that's incredibly important. And like, the arbitrator ruled in favor of the league owners. So like, it is what it is, but just to kind of see how everything is laid out, the pieces of the puzzle, and go watch the episode. I'm not trying to like take views away or listens away from them or whatever, but basically they got a document that just basically shows how from a meeting, there's a meeting with the league owners where Goodell and all them like suggest the talking points on a PowerPoint that the NFL Management Council put together. They're in a room, they're talking about it. It pertains to the Deshaun Watson thing. They don't want guaranteed contracts to become the norm. And basically it progresses on through Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. And there was another one, Justin Herbert, like the Chargers
Russell
owner.
Wilson,
Russell Wilson. What was the other one? And they got the Chargers owner talking to the Arizona owner, and the Chargers owner saying, hey, you guys not giving this guaranteed money is going to help us in our negotiation. Like, there is a lot of stuff here where it seems like very clear. The Broncos owner messaging the other people in his group saying, hey, look, I think the league is going to be happy about how we handled this contract. We'll get it done. That's not one team operating as a single entity. That's a team operating as if they're part of a collective. And I mean, they got these like messages and emails and stuff. And it seems very clear to me that, look, it isn't a surprise. Like, we kind of know how this stuff goes on. Like, but to see it laid out and just like so brazenly is like eye popping, and just like, man, like if they're talking like this on a text,
who knows what this person?
You're really comfortable if you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing in writing. Like, I think most people even know if like man, I'm about to like make a comment here that I don't know that I would want anyone else to see. Like you picking up the phone and calling someone, or and if you're even smarter, you're doing a
Face to
FaceTime
face.
audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's just kind of how a lot of people do things, and they you get the point of brazenness where you're putting it in the writing. To me, that's crazy. But look, I feel like this Tyler Shuck thing right now is an example of kind of how things play out in the league, and people are aware of the precedent of everything else setting a precedent for everything else, and then even just setting a precedent for themselves in a prior negotiation to where it's just and then you add in other teams into that doing the same thing to make sure that your precedent doesn't mess up their precedent. And if they're
Yeah.
talking about it, it's one thing to be aware about it. It's another thing to collude and make sure that it sets up that way where it's like, you're egging on the guy before you. But like going to the Shuck thing, that's why I was just like, man, this is crazy. Like, why are they putting this pressure on him to fold? And why is this story out there? Who's the person trying to create pressure on Chuck to fold in this? And it's the people before him that, to me, that would seem to be the people that would want him to fold. So it makes it so that it takes the bottom out for everybody else. So now the people right before him don't have that. Like, so it kind of everything is set up in that way, but to want Tyler Shuck to fold is crazy to me. Like, why would he? Why would he be the one to try to do that? And where is this pressure coming from? Like, it just always makes you, that as a reporter, that's always how I look at it. I'm like, well, why are they coming at 40? Like, am I missing something here? And to me, it's just like, well, you want 40 to fold, so 39, 38, 37. It
Yeah.
takes out their legs a little bit.
You want somebody to
But
be a sacrificial lamb. Yeah.
and in no way am I suggesting that this is like an orchestrated thing on Tyler Shuck or something. Like, I'm just saying, like, it just always, the precedent is always there for the other thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, man, there's so much in that story to take and then run off with because it just is an incredible just amount of journalism that went into it. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me is even the catalyst that started this entire case about Deshaun Watson getting paid and getting paid that guaranteed money. There was a time and place where the Saints were in the running to get Deshaun Watson. And because that amount of money that never ever was on the table before guaranteed that the Cleveland Browns came with, it just made it where, all right, I'm out. I'm out. I can't deal with this. You know what I mean? And luckily enough, because of what he's shown on the field the last couple of years, you dodged a major bullet.
Look,
You
I
know,
would go so far as to say that it wasn't just like in the running. I think they were likely, I think they were leading the race at one point. I mean, they restructured all the money. They got the money ready to do it. Gail
yeah,
Benson flew up there twice
yeah,
to meet with him. I don't think it was just likely. I think they were. I think that race was running them in Atlanta. I think the Saints' actions to me, I'm just piecing together A, B, and C happened. To
hmm
me, their actions told me they thought they were leading this thing. And then I think the Browns came in and had to make this wild offer to win it. And it was just like, well, we can't say no to that. I think that's how that happened. But yeah, look, the Kyler thing was so nasty to me too. I mean, I've steadfastly like pushed against the idea that he like, and I think people like denigrate his talent and talk about him in a certain way because of how things came out before his contract happened with all the
yeah. The video game
the
stuff.
video game stuff, not studying all this stuff. I
Yeah,
always thought that was like some of the most underhanded, dirty stuff, and I think people talk about him like through that prism to this day, knowingly or unknowingly, that it's just kind of in their head where they're just like, oh, this guy, like he's not serious, he's not. And before that, it was like, hey, this is one of the young rising stars in the league, and I still think he's a very, very good quarterback, but I think people denigrate him a little bit because of the way that got talked about. And I think it was part of the negotiation tactic to kind of like lower his perceived value, to try to get stuff done. I really do think it was part of that.
yeah. No, I mean, look, and even with I think the biggest, I don't know how it wasn't that big of a story, but even with Lamar Jackson, when he was available and just teams were just uninterested and he landed back in Baltimore, I think that's such a wild thing because people needed quarterback. They brought up the Falcons and Desmond Ritter. Desmond Ritter isn't even in the league right now. So to not go after an MVP and then continuously, I mean, he won it again. To not go after that because of steadfast with the precedent that okay, we're not going to buckle and just give out all of this guaranteed money is kind of wild. But even
But look,
talking,
I think part of that, like too, like just spinning out on that one a little bit. I think there's two
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
and it's always, hey, look, like they were using it as a negotiation tactic, obviously. Like if someone comes in, they're gonna match off or whatever. And I think there's a piece of like I don't want to be part of this because like if I get involved in this now, like I've lost out, and it's not something I'm going to go after this quarterback and I'm not going to be able to get him. And now I got a quarterback on my team and I got these fans and all that stuff.
yeah.
But there's also the other side of it where, me being a person that owns a business, if I can do something to make my competition spend more money in a way that I think is going to allow me
Yeah.
to grant a larger piece of the market share, boy, I don't know. Maybe I'm doing that. And guess what? Like, if I got to pay Lamar Jackson because they're like, you know what, take him. Okay, like now I got Lamar Jackson. So yeah, I mean that one was always. I was always surprised someone didn't just step up just to screw him. But these documents, even though it was rolled in a way that shows, that shows is the wrong word, but it was rolled that there wasn't collusion. To me, makes it seem like there's at least a little bit of like something here. And look, people can always just choose to take a more passive approach in some things to where like I'm not gonna do this because it's gonna, maybe it comes back on me. I don't want to like make it harder for myself to do future business by doing this. So like I'm just gonna sit it out. I think that's a very logical way to look at things sometimes. And it doesn't have to be a colluded thing. It doesn't have to be an organization with other people. Sometimes people are just like, I'm not gonna do aggressive business because I want to be able to do it this way. And that works for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that operate that way, and it's great and it's fruitful and they get very rich and all this stuff. But in a competitive atmosphere, it's surprising that one of 32 doesn't.
Yeah. No, for sure. Have you ever heard a team say, "Oh, we're out. We're not even, taking a look at this guy. We're not in this race." Have you ever heard them put out like a statement saying that?
That was very weird. The way that whole thing played out. Yeah, like, hey, look, we're not part of this. And then it's like, well,
Yeah.
why are you saying it publicly? Because like now you're just doing that to cut that's where it looks nuts. Like that's where
Yeah.
it looks like what is happening here? Why is this happening? Like that should not be part of it unless there's a loud story out there saying, oh, they're trying to get them, or if somebody's lying and throwing my name in there and being like, oh, the this team's trying to sign this player, and hey, look, you aren't going to use me for this. Like, no, don't put me. I can see that, but it was very weird
Yeah.
how that was kind of happening that year. Yeah, I remember one time like Belichick claimed like it used to be a thing where it was kind of like a gentleman's agreement where if you waived an injured player at the end of camp, like other people wouldn't claim him off waivers and you could just kind of stash him on your IR or whatever. And I
Mhm.
can't remember who it was, but it was like 2010, 2011. Like I think it was the Bills. The Bills waived someone to get him through to and they were gonna put him on IR or whatever. Like either you used to have to carry him and do it after you could do it, but like there was kind of like this gentleman's agreement to where, hey, look, nobody's gonna touch someone's player, and they waived someone, and Belichick claimed them, and I remember that was like a huge thing, and it was just like, oh, like there's a code or whatever,
Yeah.
that kind of got cooked, but yeah, I mean, I think there's just like a lot of these little things where people try to do like, I don't know if it's collusion or if it's just they aren't stepping on toes or whatever, but someone's got to step on some toes when the MVP of the league is available,
Yeah. No, for sure. And even this had me thinking,
even if he isn't really available,
right.
just to make it more
But just to
expensive.
try
Yeah.
to make it happen. No.
But
And
then
this
there's the backside to that where you get into this again. Like if you make Lamar Jackson more expensive, now you're making your own quarterback more expensive.
and then down the line, everybody else is going to be way more
Yeah.
expensive. But somebody's going to get paid that doesn't need to get paid. And even with the Russell Wilson thing, I mean, I don't know if he just didn't know who he was at that point. You know what I mean? There was that point when Russell Wilson was in Denver, and it just was like, all right, what is it, Mr. Unlimited and all that. He was buying his own hype, but the money that he asked for to the position that he was in his life right there, I don't know if that was kind of right for him, but they threw water on that quickly. And then even when Sean Payton came in there, he was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And he ended up in Pittsburgh and now he's in New York. But this even has me like thinking and kind of showing that there's the game on the field, but then there's the game that's inside of the different buildings. There's the games that goes on at these meetings and different things like that. Because I mean, man, just seeing it all wide open and seeing it as these people that, don't like each other in terms of their teams playing against each other from a rivalry standpoint, collectively, I mean, they're looking out for each other's best interest. just through the receipts that they've left on the ground for Florio and Torre to pick up and kind of show.
Yep.
No, it's wild, man. It's wild. I like that kind of stuff, that kind of deep dive stuff about the behind the curtain. You know what I mean? It's really cool to see. So if you haven't, make sure you check out Pablo Torre Finds Out. That video is, I mean, I don't think enough people were talking about it just because the implications that it has on the league as a whole.